On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're recapping that loss in Buffalo. Can the Lightning get it together? Now losers of their last three. We break it all down, but first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Dangu. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Locked On Lightning. And this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On Lightning, unfortunately, we are breaking down another Lightning loss as they come back to Tampa, losers of their last three on this road trip. Really just a disappointing road trip. And you know, I know we're only 4 games into the season right now, but I have to say this road trip was an absolute disaster. It went as wrong as probably you could imagine. The only thing, I think the only positive side out of all these losses was the fact that was actually that there was only 3 games. I that's the really only positive that we could take from these games. Really, you look at it, they lost all 3. Stamkos is day to day. We don't know when he's going to return with a lower body injury. Nikita Kucherov looks like he's gone missing for the last 2 games. Not entirely sure what's happened to him. I guess the only positive is if you look at at the Buffalo game the other night, Hagel scored twice. I mean, that's great. That's wonderful. But it was all in vain as the Lightning ended up losing in overtime. And really going to come out of the gate really quick and say, and because I was really high on him. So if you've been a listener of this show, and if you haven't already been, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow. Wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form, we're also available on YouTube as well. So subscribe to the channel. And I've been really high on him to start the season. And I hate that we're only in through 4 games that I have to talk about the negatives surrounding this guy. And that is our friend Jonas Johansson, who looked out of sorts in this game. You know, you could say, well, listen, he made a bunch of saves in this game and he did a good job in terms of weathering the storm. What you mean by that is he made 28 of 31 saves, which is great. But at the same time, the goals he gave up, I think 2 out of the 3 were just really bad. They were just really bad goals, especially the one in overtime, which was a game winner, obviously, by Dylan Cozens, who I get it. Guy scored practically 40 goals last year. Very talented player. I said going into this game that he was one of the better players on the team. Last year, if you listen to the Locked On NHL national show, when I hosted that, I spoke a lot about Dylan Cozens and how he was a really, really good player and really the lifeblood of that Buffalo team. But it's not like it's not like he's Connor McDavid or he's Austin Matthews or he's Nathan McKinnon. He's not a juggernaut superstar player who was ripping wrist shots past goaltenders of all caliber, and this was a regular wrister that, yeah, if you look on the replay, Johansson's probably expecting something glove side, ends up going through his blocker side, and yeah, but I mean that comes down all to reflex and skill, and you know, I hate to say it, and especially that first goal as well, a little bit similar on the way, except that went glove side, which on both those goals, he did not look like he was ready whatsoever. And that's alarming, especially in overtime. especially in the beginning of a game when this team is reeling off of two previous losses, especially a terrible one up in Ottawa. And I what can this team do to get back on the right foot is just, I don't know. I mean, really, I mean, we do know what needs to be done, and we will talk about more about that in the second segment. But I mean, when you look at this team and John Cooper could, I am a little bit more cavalier to blame it on the coach than the players. But at the same time, it's not a good look when Nikita Kucherov has 2 shots and that's it to show for. And in the previous game, same thing. The last time he showed some sort of life was in Detroit, and we've spoken about this numerous times with Nikita Kucherov, how he goes from being a player who looks like he's one of the best players in the NHL, and then he completely kind of just disappears, goes MIA for a couple of games, especially when his team needs him. These are the type of situations, type of games where, you especially have Stamkos out. You have your actual leader, the guy who wears the C, out of the lineup. Hagel, yeah, we all know he's going to get his goals, which is phenomenal. But at the end of the day, you got to rely and I've said it before and I said it all last year as well. This team relies on 86 to get things going. And when he doesn't do that, you could see the drop off in performance. And that's an issue. And, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and we may never know the conversations that might be had with this team, in the locker room, whether it be between each other or between coaches and players, or between especially John Cooper and players. But I would imagine there has to be some sort of conversation being had where at some point, whether it was not last year, it had to have been at some point last year as well, because this was an issue last year. And I'm not saying that the reason why the Lightning lost both these games was the inactivity of Nikita Kucherov, but it did play a favor. It did play a part in it. I just think that there has to have been a conversation, or there needs to be one, where John Cooper is saying you need to go out there and take control. And we've seen that happen before, where Lightning are not playing well. And I'm sorry, I'm fiddling a little bit with my microphone. I think there has to have a conversation be made or something be said, whether it's from Cooper or from Stamkos or Hedman or whomever. One of those leaders needs to go up to Cooch and say, listen, you need to do what you need to do in order to get things going. Because if there's a single player on this team, whether they're in year 10 or a year whatever, or it's their first season with the Lightning, I think every guy on this team knows at the end of the day, yes, they have the talent all around. But at the same time, 86 is the guy who's got to stir the pot, who's got to get things going, who's got to light the fire. I mean, throw in whatever cliche you want to throw in there to get the point across. But yeah, I mean, that's not the whole reason for this loss. Going down 2-0 really, especially early on, really doesn't do you any favors. I'm not even going to address that, to be honest, just because this team has started so many games over the last couple of years in which they've dug themselves a hole that they now have to dig themselves out of over the next couple of periods. And that's just something that I think that we could all agree is ridiculous, that this continues to happen. And Yeah, I know that Johansson doesn't. He clearly didn't have it the other night, and Cooch clearly wasn't ready to play or wasn't. Just I don't know what was up with him, but this team needs to find ways to win, especially without Andre Vasilevsky in that. They need and Steven Stamkos not on the ice. Need to find ways to win, whether it be Kucherov, whether it be I don't know, pick your poison. Jeannot had no shots the last night either. I'm sorry, that's inexcusable. After the way he started the season, he's been playing well. You got to continue to be aggressive, as well as Kucherov. I mean, every guy on this team. I'm not saying everybody has to have a billion shots, but I would like to see a handful, or at least, at least 3 from each player on this team. And to be outshot, regardless of who's on the other team for Buffalo, to be outshot at any point in this game is kind of a disgrace. So we'll continue to talk about this. We'll continue to talk about falling behind early again. We'll continue to discuss, is it too early to panic? Is it too early to be somewhat upset or make a change or, all of that, all of above? We'll talk about all of that coming up. But first, we got to hear from some of our sponsors. And first up is our friends over at eBay Motors. Now, eBay Motors is one of the best platforms out there. If you're in the market for some car parts, eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And let's hear from our other sponsor, and that is our friends over at the Game Time app. Love this sponsor. I've used it myself personally before. I used it last year when the Lightning were in New York, up in my neck of the woods against the New York Rangers. Was able to get tickets last minute with Game Time, and you guys should definitely use it too, because you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So as always, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, and we're also available now, by the way, on Sirius XM. So go ahead and download the app on there as well, and hit that notification button, whether you're listening to us on there, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're there. Hit that notification button, and as well as on our YouTube account. So as soon as the newest episode drops, you'll be notified. And also follow us on our social media accounts at LO_Lightning on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as LOCKEDON_Lightning on Instagram. You give me a follow on X, formerly known as Twitter, at DankyDank, DENKYD8NK. Love hearing from all of you. make sure to answer those ask some questions or reach out if you want to reach out. You could either reach me on Twitter or you could reach out to me in the comments, and I'll be viewing those on a daily basis. So if you have any questions, concerns, whatever that may be, if you want it answered or discussed on the show, we will talk about it. Time permitting, of course. So I I look at this game and listen, I'm going to be completely honest. Going into this game, and maybe some of you, especially my longtime listeners who kind of, I guess, get to know me, if you want to say that. I mean, I think I converse with a good number of you all through social media, to where you kind of get me in terms of where I'm at with certain things and where I think about what I think about certain things and all this and that. And I think I'm not the only one in this assumption, but, or at least the way I feel about this, but I was not expecting the Lightning to win this game. I'm sorry. Listen, if you want to say I'm negative or whatever the case may be, overreacting to the Lightning, and I'm not saying that now in hindsight, trust me, I'm not. Some of my longer listeners, you could definitely vouch for me. I did not think the Lightning were going to win this game. It's just because if you've been listening since the early days of the summer, I mean, the late days of the summer into the early days of training camp, the one thing I always have preached forever, especially dating back to last year, has been the fact that the Lightning do not play consistent hockey. They do not play consistently well. They do not get off to good starts. They do not have good habits. They do play well. They do play well in certain situations. They do certain things, especially in the playoffs, that are very encouraging. But when it comes to the last couple of seasons, and when I'm saying the last couple of seasons, I'm really talking about last season, the 22-23 season, and then as well as the first 3 games of this season. There's a pattern. There's a pattern of bad habits, getting off the slow starts, and that should tip you off to something being off right there. Now you're saying, well, the Lightning are going to be fine going forward because they have a great coach, and I'm not disputing that. John Cooper is a great coach. You don't coach 800 games in the NHL with one team and not be a good coach. The guy's won 2 Stanley Cups, has been to 4 Stanley Cup final. And my thing though is if this team has not been able to change their bad habits, and this goes for not only sports, this goes for anywhere in life, whether it be in the job areas, at your professional setting at work, or whether it be in personal relationships, whatever the case may be. If someone or a group of people do not want, or whether outright refuse or just subconsciously do not change negative habits, who is the blame, especially at work? Who's the blame? Is it the workers? Yeah, you could switch out workers here and there, and we've seen that in Tampa Bay as well. Certain players have either not been brought back for certain reasons. And let's make no mistake about it. I'm sure if the Lightning had endless amounts of cash, we'd be sitting here with Ryan McDonough, Jan Ruda, with Corey Perry, with Pat Maroon, maybe. That's also on the same hand that, those guys would have been able to improve and, weren't sort of broken down. But it also comes down to, when you look in a workplace, it also comes down to, if you're changing out personnel here and there and you're keeping your better workers, but still as a group, you are not succeeding consistently. At the end of the day, whose fault is it? If you're just one of the workers, is it your fault? No. You'll look at the supervisor or the manager, in this case, the coach, who was John Cooper. Now, I'm not saying if the Lightning have another year and this gets progressively worse from here as the season goes down the road. No, I'm not saying John Cooper's in jeopardy of losing his job. And if the same were to happen next year, no, absolutely not. I don't think he's in jeopardy of losing his job. But I made this comment through the YouTube channel. I believe on the last video when someone made a comment pertaining to the team just not playing well, kind of had the same feeling that I had that we were going to lose in Buffalo, which they did, obviously. My thing is, at the end of the day, when does John Cooper come out and acknowledge that these bad habits are no longer habits? They're just a part right now, unless something completely changes. When does he acknowledge that things need to change? In my opinion, I think that will come out if this persists in December. And I stick by that. Do I think the Lightning are going to get to that point? Wishful thinking says no. I would hope that they at least turn it around in the next couple of weeks. Because like I have said over the last week or so, especially after dropping, or actually we could even go back further. Before going into this road trip, I said how important it was that the Lightning needed to be successful in this road trip because it wasn't exactly going to be a easy test for the Lightning with the rest of the schedule for at least this month. Not even getting into November, but I'm talking more so about September because you have Vancouver on tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, so tomorrow, Thursday, at home. That should be a win, right? We could all agree that is a game, unless they come out and completely lay an egg in the first period, which I don't. I mean, and also you have the Thatcher Demko variable as well. Thatcher Demko, very good goaltender. I think still can come out and just pitch a shutout against the Lightning. And that's the other thing. A little side note. I thought that the Lightning looked very slow in this game. I thought their offensive attack was not that good. They were very slow on the counterattack against Buffalo. Like I said, there was a whole lot that was wrong with this game. And it's a trend, and it all starts from the initial puck drop. This team did not look like, and I'll get back into the schedule real quick, but I need to say this. This team did not look like a team that was set out to win this game. This looked like a team that was just trying to tread water. But there is room for redemption. And like I said, it does not get any easier. You have Vancouver tomorrow night at home. That's a winnable game, right? We could all agree here. But then you got Toronto on Saturday at home. Okay. At least you got the friendly fans behind you. And you play your cards right. You should be able to win that as well. But then next Tuesday, a week from now, less than a week from now, you got Carolina, who, like I said, in the middle of summer, if there's one team we should be afraid of in the Eastern Conference, it's Carolina. Carolina is one of the more impressive teams in the NHL that I've seen over the last couple of years. And I think maybe they're one piece away or they need one player to just kind of bring it all together, but they're very disciplined. They're very smart. They play very conservative and aggressive when they need to. They're easy to turn it. They're able to turn it on and off whenever they want. And that is a game that I look at within the next week or so where I say if the Lightning come out and play the way they played on Sunday and last night, and they go out and bring that with them and they play like that next Tuesday against Carolina, Carolina will drop 8 goals on them. And I guarantee you it will be, I'm not talking that this is going to be an 8-6 game, an 8-7 game, whatever the case. This is going to be a very lopsided game if they don't bring their A game. And it all starts, listen, the path to redemption starts now. The path to getting it together is now. It all starts with Vancouver. Play a game that you know how to play for 60 minutes. Play a game that you could bring over into Saturday against Toronto for 60 minutes. And then enjoy your 2 days of not playing games. Just practice. Bring it into Carolina. Bring that success. Bring that discipline. Bring that Zen-like hockey play. While at the same time playing fast, because you're definitely going to need to play fast against these next two guys. Win that game, or at least come close to, and then beat the crap out of San Jose next week. That's all I ask. I'm not even looking at Seattle right now. We're 2 weeks away from Seattle. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about getting embarrassed on Saturday, getting run out of the building on Tuesday, because I don't want to be here at the end of September saying, oh, we got our butts kicked by Toronto and Carolina and Seattle, but hey, at least we beat Vancouver and San Jose. Nothing wrong here, because we definitely will hear that from certain individuals on this team, not naming anybody, and it's not players. So the Lightning really have a lot to work to do in the next couple of days. A lot of soul searching, a lot of changing things up. I would hope, and this is another wishful thinking, I hope we see some freaking changes on this team. Get creative with it. If we need to bring up Nick Paul and put him on the third line, and I'm not saying that as a jab at Mikey Esamont or Tanner Janelle, but if we need to give him some second line burn and put him on the wing, so be it. Listen, now is as good a time to play with it as any time. So let me know in the comments below what you think about that. We'll continue to talk about this until the Lightning win a game, because listen, I'm trying to be positive, but the Lightning aren't giving us exactly anything to be positive about, especially with these last two performances. And the first period against Vancouver will definitely tell us a lot about where this team is at right now, and especially Saturday against Toronto, because preferably I would like to see 2 wins going into that Carolina game, because like I said, that is just that is just a setup for disaster if they continue to play like that. And I really don't want to see the Lightning get embarrassed. So let me know in the comments below what you think, what needs to be changed with this team right now, with the inside personnel, not even talking about outside personnel, because Lightning don't have any money for that. So we're just going to have to deal with what we got. And I think they could win with what they got, but it's all about going out there and doing the right thing. So we'll wrap things up in just a little bit. But first, I want to talk about our other friends. Then there's our friends over at the Sleeper app. Now, I use this for hockey and football, fantasy football, as well as fantasy hockey. But guess what? You could use it for daily picks. You can do it for daily picks. Listen, with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contest. As the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network, Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. Listen, so use the promo code Locked On NHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So wrapping things up on the show today, listen, I think that this team has the pieces. And I'm not saying they're playing like this because of Stamkos, because I thought Stamkos was playing pretty well. So obviously it's not him. I think certain individuals like Mr. 86, Nikita Kucherov, need to really assert themselves, need to take the bull by the horns and just go out there and, be a little selfish, because good things happen when he has been selfish. So it really all starts with him. It really all starts with them going out and helping out their goaltender. I think Johansson just needs a breather mentally. Not saying that he shouldn't play tomorrow night. I think he should. But I think he just needs to really just have better positioning. That's really what it came down to, and just be on his toes more. I saw a lot of positive things in his first couple of starts. Like I said, last night was probably a little bit of a setback, but that's what it is. What it is. A lot of goaltenders have nights like that, even Andre Vasilevsky. So let me know in the comments below what you think about that. What you think, how you feel about this team. Is it too early to panic? I don't think so. I don't. It's not too early to be frustrated, but it's definitely not too early. It's definitely too early to panic. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think about that. Should the Lions get a complete facelift? Should we break up that first line between Point, Cooch, and Hagel? What about the defensive lines? I did see that Chernak did play on the first line, which was great, but that was one night. Was that a matchup thing? Clearly didn't work. The front net presence was horrendous. So let me know what you think about that. And we'll be back tomorrow to preview the game against Vancouver. So make sure to tune in for that. Like I said, we are available wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form, as well as on YouTube. So subscribe, hit the notification button if you're on an app. So as soon as the newest episode drops, you'll be notified. So in the meantime, that'll be it for today's episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.